Welcome to my channel, Midsummer Myths, where you find stories like no other, packed with twists, drama, and unbelievable moments you won't forget. The courtroom was tense, almost suffocating. Every seat filled, every eye glued to the central spectacle. A black Navy SEAL, a decorated veteran who had faced death overseas, sat calmly at the defendant's table. Across from him, a local cop, seething with prejudice, fumed in his uniform, his hand twitching toward his badge. The whispers in the room swirled like a storm, everyone sensing the inevitable confrontation. The SEAL's presence alone commanded respect, yet the cop's arrogance filled the air like smoke from a burning fuse. It began innocently. Enough, a minor procedural dispute. The cop barked accusations, his tone dripping with disdain. He assumed the SEAL's quiet composure was weakness, a mistake he would regret. The judge, already frustrated with the cop's disrespect, banged his gavel, demanding order. But the officer didn't stop. His eyes narrowed, his voice rising, claiming authority he didn't deserve. Suddenly, the tension snapped. The cop lunged, a reckless, unlawful attack fueled by bias. Gasps erupted. People in the gallery rose from their seats, shocked. Security scrambled, but the SEAL's training kicked in. In a move so precise, so controlled, he defended himself without escalating violence. Every motion calculated, every breath purposeful. This was no ordinary confrontation. This was the moment where courage meets prejudice head-on. The SEAL's calm demeanor, honed from years of elite training, became the invisible armor that protected him. The cop's rage, unchecked and impulsive, was a storm about to collapse. As bystanders watched in horror, the SEAL's eyes never left the cop's, silently measuring, predicting, controlling. He wasn't just defending himself, he was making a statement, one that would ripple through the community, challenging every assumption about authority, race, and courage. Then came the first shocking twist. The courtroom cameras, unnoticed by the cop, captured every illegal move. The officer's actions, meant to intimidate, were now evidence. The gallery murmured, tension rising like an electric current, ready to explode. The SEAL's calm contrasted the cop's escalating fury, setting the stage for a confrontation that would be talked about for months. And just when it seemed the moment could not intensify, a sudden interruption from the judge. A sharp declaration froze everyone. The cop's eyes widened, his arrogance was cracking, and the SEAL, he leaned back, slightly, composed, almost serene. The next few minutes would determine justice, reputation, and the very meaning of courage. The courtroom was electric. Every eye fixed on the SEAL and the cop, each breath a countdown to disaster. Whispers surged like tidal waves across the gallery, murmuring about who would blink first. But the SEAL didn't flinch. He had faced far worse than a biased officer's temper overseas. Death was a constant companion, and fear was a tool he had mastered. Here, though the stakes were personal, not just for him, but for every witness, for every black man who had faced injustice and prejudice, the cop, red-faced and shaking with fury, circled like a predator, trying to provoke a reaction. He shouted over the judge, claiming false authority, insisting the SEAL was out of line. The judge slammed his gavel, demanding silence, but the officer's audacity seemed untouchable. And yet, with every word the cop spewed, his lack of control became painfully obvious. The SEAL's eyes, calm and calculating, never wavered. He was reading the man like an open book, noting the stance, the trembling hands, the shallow breaths, all signs of someone spiraling toward self-destruction. Suddenly, the cop attempted another physical advance, reaching for the SEAL's shoulder. Instinctively, the SEAL shifted, stepping aside while maintaining perfect composure. In a single motion, he guided the officer off balance, subtly but decisively, ensuring no permanent harm, yet making it clear he would not be bullied. The courtroom erupted, gasps, whispers, some applause, the tension slicing through the room like a razor. Cameras captured every angle, every illegal action by the officer, immortalizing the confrontation for future accountability. The officer's embarrassment morphed into rage. His arrogance had blinded him to the SEAL's skill and composure. Every failed attempt to intimidate heightened his frustration, and now the entire courtroom bore witness to his unraveling. Lawyers whispered, jurors leaned forward, security tensed, and the judge's gavel banged again, echoing through the chamber like a heartbeat of authority. Then came the turning point. The SEAL, recognizing the moment, spoke, his voice calm but piercing, commanding the room's attention. Every word was precise, every pause intentional, building suspense, drawing in the audience. He didn't need to fight. He needed to expose. And in that exposure, the officer's misdeeds became undeniable. Security moved in, not to subdue the SEAL, but to contain the cop's spiraling behavior. The gallery watched in stunned silence, understanding that the scales of justice were tipping, and just when the cop thought he could recover, the SEAL revealed one final shocking fact, evidence hidden until now, captured on body cams and court recordings, proving everything. The officer froze, realizing he had underestimated his opponent in the worst way. The courtroom held its collective breath, poised on the edge of revelation, knowing that the next moment would change everything. It was over in seconds, yet the tension felt eternal. The CL's revelation hit like a thunderclap, the officer's misconduct exposed, broadcast live in the courtroom. Murmurs erupted into shouts. Some spectators gasped, others clutched their seats in disbelief. The cop, now red with anger and embarrassment, looked for an escape, but there was none. His reputation, authority, and credibility had been shattered. In front of every witness, every camera, and most importantly, every person who had ever questioned injustice. The SEAL didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply stood, calm and composed, letting the weight of truth do the work. He recounted the officer's attempts to provoke him, the illegal actions, and the complete lack of professionalism. While the gallery listened, rapt and horrified. Each word was precise, deliberate, emotionally charged, exposing not just a single act, but a pattern of prejudice and abuse of power. The cop tried to protest, claiming authority, citing procedure, and even attempting to attack verbally again. But the seat anticipated it. His reactions, honed by years in high-stress military operations, neutralized every move before it could escalate. Every flicker of aggression, every tactic, was countered without harm but with maximum impact, demonstrating the perfect balance of strength, discipline, and moral authority. And then the twist. The officer's superior, who had been silently observing, stepped forward. Eyes cold, posture rigid. The superior reprimanded the cop publicly, outlining the consequences of his behavior. It was a humiliation layered with authority, a powerful signal to the community that justice wasn't just about confrontation, but accountability. The cop's face went pale. he realized he had miscalculated entirely. Outside the courtroom, the community was abuzz. Witnesses recorded reactions, shared videos, and debated what they had seen. Social media began lighting up, amplifying the story of the Black Navy SEAL who stood unshaken against bigotry, skillfully exposing corruption without ever losing control. This wasn't just a win for one man. It became a symbol of courage, precision, and the power of standing firm against prejudice. Yet, despite the exposure and retaliation, the SEAL remained humble. He knew that courage wasn't about revenge. It was about setting the record straight, protecting truth, and showing that even against the most entrenched bias, dignity and composure could prevail. But as he left the courtroom, a final shock awaited. The officer wasn't finished. A legal loophole, an appeal, a twist in the system threatened to extend the conflict, promising that the battle was far from over. Asterisk. The next day, the story exploded across every major news outlet. Clips of the courtroom confrontation went viral, shared thousands of times on social media. Headlines shouted of courage, injustice exposed, and a Navy SEAL standing tall against prejudice. The officer, once a symbol of authority, had become a cautionary tale, humiliated, exposed, and under investigation. His colleagues whispered in fear, aware that every move he made would now be scrutinized. The SEAL, however, remained focused. He didn't celebrate publicly. His satisfaction came quietly, knowing that justice had been served without stooping to aggression or hatred. His tactical precision had turned the officer's bias against him, transforming a threatening situation into a public lesson on integrity, composure, and moral authority. Then came a shocking twist. Unbeknownst to the officer, private investigators had uncovered a history of complaints and misconduct against him. Decades of abuse and bias buried in files no one had ever seen. With the CRL's case as the catalyst, these files were brought to light, triggering an internal review that could end the officer's career entirely. The SEAL's calm courage had set off a domino effect of accountability, far beyond anything he could have imagined. The community rallied around the SEAL, honoring his service and moral fortitude. Black veterans, ordinary citizens, and even those skeptical at first expressed admiration. His actions became a blueprint, a story of how courage, intelligence, and restraint could turn fear into empowerment. In neighborhoods, workplaces, and online forums, people shared the lesson: standing firm in your truth and relying on discipline and strategy can dismantle even the most entrenched prejudice. And as for the officer, he found himself isolated, his credibility shattered, forced to face consequences in ways he could not control. The courtroom, the cameras, and the viral videos had transformed his world overnight. What began as a personal attack had become a public reckoning, and the SEAL's quiet composure had sparked a movement of awareness, justice, and accountability. Asterisk. Weeks later, the courtroom felt different. The officer, now facing disciplinary action and internal investigations, shuffled into the same room where he had tried to intimidate a decorated veteran. The SEAL returned, calm and collected, embodying dignity in every movement. The judge, once skeptical of the viral attention, nodded in quiet approval as the officer's behavior was formally addressed. The irony was sharp. A man who had thought authority and prejudice could overpower courage had instead been undone by the very rules he sought to exploit. Every witness, every juror, and every spectator knew the truth. Justice had been delivered not with violence, but with precision. Courage, and integrity. The SEAL's presence had not just defended himself, but redefined what it meant to stand against systemic prejudice. Social media buzzed endlessly. Clips of the confrontation, analysis by commentators, and heartfelt testimonials went viral. Black veterans and ordinary citizens alike hailed the Sikh as a hero. The officer's attempts at intimidation had failed spectacularly, leaving him embarrassed, isolated, and accountable. And in the quiet moments, the SEAL reflected, this wasn't about fame or revenge. It was about exposing truth, protecting dignity, and ensuring that courage and composure could triumph over hatred and injustice. Finally, as the courtroom emptied and the cameras stopped rolling, a subtle smile crossed the SEAL's face. He had not only survived the attack, but had turned it into a public reckoning. His strategy, discipline, and moral clarity had transformed a moment of danger into a story of empowerment for countless others. How did you like this story? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories from Midsummer Myths.